I used to think that I could never get up on stage and give a speech without feeling extremely anxious. As someone who struggled with social anxiety, I thought that maybe overcoming my fear of public speaking would go a long way towards helping me feel less anxious overall. In this video, I'll explain what I learned from going to over 100 public speaking classes, whether it was worth it, and 5 of the key lessons I learned along the way. Hey there, I'm Neil and I struggled with social anxiety for more than 2 decades. On this channel, every week, I'll be bringing you the best methods and strategies I've used in my own life to feel more confident. One of the first things that I soon realised was that it's much better to actually start going to smaller classes and to work your way up to talking in front of bigger groups. So the Toastmasters group that was my local one actually averaged between about 25 and 30 members each session, which is actually very daunting if you've not really done a lot of public speaking in the past. This was especially difficult when it came to the anticipatory anxiety as well, because you'd just spend days in advance worrying if you had a speech coming up, knowing that there was probably going to be about 30 people in the audience when you actually delivered it. And even just going into the room at the beginning, just in terms of social anxiety, meeting people there and just mingling at the beginning of sessions when there's quite a lot of people like that can be very daunting. For me, it wasn't just about the public speaking, it was about social anxiety as well, just talking to people in general. Shortly after I started going to Toastmasters, I actually found out about another public speaking group that was happening in my local area, and this one was much more informal and didn't have anywhere near as many people going each week. They're only about maybe 10 to 12 on average, so you got to know people on a much more personal level as well, and the group as a whole just felt a lot more relaxed. Due to the nature of the group being a lot smaller, it meant we actually got to give a lot more speeches and we just had a lot more opportunities to get up in front of people in general, and the exercises were a lot more varied as well. There was a lot more input from us on the sorts of things we wanted to be doing compared to the very sort of rigid structure that Toastmasters sessions have. In the beginning, I actually much preferred the smaller group that I found through Meetup, because they also met once a week compared to the Toastmasters groups that tend to meet once a fortnight. So you actually got far more repetition in a session, but then you got to repeat that a lot more frequently. And certainly at the beginning, if you want to get better and settle into things, then repetition really is key. A larger Toastmasters group is something that I'd definitely recommend graduating to once you get more confident doing more basic public speaking things. It really just depends what's going on in your local area. And the other thing with the meetup group was that there was nothing we had to prepare before sessions as well. Most things were just off the cuff. Whereas with Toastmasters, a lot of the session roles do require you do some sort of homework in advance, in particular the prepared speeches. So I just found overall the meetup group to be a lot less stressful. I also gave online public speaking classes a go as part of my overcoming social anxiety journey, and I found that actually these can also be a really effective way to get practice in, and I'd say you get at least around 70% of the benefits as if you'd actually gone to a real life class. One of the big benefits of this, of course, is that you can do them from the comfort of your own home without having to travel, which means that you save a lot of time. And since the pandemic, there have actually been a lot more of these classes appearing online. And even during the pandemic, a lot of the Toastmasters groups went online as well. And I think some of them still do online meetings as well. So there's a lot more variety to pick and choose from. If you are someone that really does struggle with things like public speaking and you really lack confidence in that kind of area, then going to online classes can actually be an excellent way to help bridge that gap until you feel comfortable enough to go to one in real life. And because they're online, you can go to several in a week because location isn't an issue. So you can get a lot of practice in before you make that jump to a real life session. I did really learn the value of repetition, and I did find that just by simply giving one big speech in front of, say, 30 or so people doesn't automatically rid you of the anxiety of public speaking. You may feel relieved and really good after you've done the speech, but before actually going up there, and even in the days approaching it, I did get a lot of anticipatory anxiety, and that anxiety would just go up and up and up until I was eventually called on stage, where it would peak. And then for maybe the first sort of 30 seconds that I was up there, the anxiety would be pretty high, and then it would gradually, as the speech went on, go down and down and down which was really good, but you had to do it many, many times over to really see tangible results. I'd say about halfway through the speech, about half the anxiety had gone, and then by the end, maybe 70 or 80% of it had gone. And then you get that round of applause, you feel really good about yourself. You go sit back down again, you wonder what all the fuss was about, only for 2 weeks later, the whole cycle just repeats itself, and that's just really frustrating. I did find that I got this huge sense of accomplishment every time I gave a speech, but next time pretty much all the anxiety would just come back. So really you need to be doing it at least once a week or more to really get those benefits. Otherwise you're just torturing yourself like over and over again, and it's just not a nice place to be. For a public speaking organisation like Toastmasters, where you do sometimes have to put in a lot of effort to prepare speeches, I did find there was a much more efficient way to maximise the amount of practice you got without having to spend hours and hours putting in all that work up front. Because when you actually give a speech, you're only up there for maybe 5 to 7 minutes, and then you kind of think to yourself, was it really worth all those hours of effort I put in just to do that? In my time at Toastmasters, I did give a few prepared speeches and they all were very well received. They all did go very well, but it did take me a very long time to actually prepare for them. It took on average, I'd say at least 10, maybe 12 hours to prepare just for like one speech. And a lot of this was because I tried to memorize each speech word for word. A lot of it was just fueled by perfectionism, and I was just very terrified of going up there and forgetting what I was going to say. But if I were to do it again, I'd try instead to just use bullet points and not be so hard on myself and just try and get up there and see what happened. They do actually give out ribbons at the end of Toastmaster sessions for like the best speaker, the best evaluator, and the best table topic of the night. So I did actually get a couple of ribbons, but you're only competing against like 2 other people. So I don't know, it feels good, but like it's quite a formal thing, and I guess in a way it kind of puts a bit more pressure on you with that. And for me, I was just kind of going there just to try and have like fun if I could, and just practice speaking and just talking to people. So I guess it kind of is like quite a serious thing in some ways, Toastmasters as well. So you just got to try it and see what you think of it. After a while, I did start to put myself down for roles that required little to no preparation at all. So things like the evaluator roles, where you just evaluate someone else's prepared speech on the night. So you really just learn by doing. And table topics, where it's just impromptu speaking. So you may just like put your hand up and volunteer on the night to do it. And this was a lot better because you're still up there for like 2 minutes if you're giving an impromptu speech, or evaluating, you can be up there for like 3 or 4 minutes. So it's nearly as long as giving a prepared speech anyway, but without all that like hassle up front of having to make it like a part-time job for the upcoming week. The last very important thing that I learned was that you really need to have cognitive strategies in place as well, and just trying to use brute force to try and overcome social anxiety isn't the most effective strategy. It may work to an extent, and you certainly will feel a bit better, but if you've got a lot of maladaptive thinking patterns, a lot of negative thoughts going through your mind every day, and you have low self-esteem and all those sorts of things, then until you start to really get a handle on those, ideally at the same time as doing a lot of exposure activities, then you're not going to see the results that you really hope for with trying to overcome social anxiety. For me, I'd say that going to a lot of these Toastmasters and public speaking sessions didn't really change my life. I know that a lot of people it does have that impact on, which is really good, but for me, I needed to do a lot more stuff than simply get up on stage and do a lot of speeches. I wouldn't say that public speaking by itself is this magic cure-all for social anxiety, but I would highly recommend trying it and trying doing things like Toastmasters as part of your journey to getting better, and just see where that takes you. I'm very happy that I gave public speaking a try, and I did go to more than 100 classes, but at the time when I first started out, I wasn't doing all these cognitive strategies as well, and it wasn't until later on that I started to implement them. So if I was starting it again, I'd make sure that I had a lot of the cognitive strategies sort of nailed down and in place first, before trying to continually expose myself to the public speaking aspect of things, because it's just too torturous, and you don't get the results as quickly as you would do if you had these cognitive strategies at the same time. If you enjoyed this video and you want to watch more, then check out my next one where I'll be talking about some simple slowing down strategies that you can use to begin to get on top of social anxiety. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this content valuable, then please hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.